Hey everyone, this is smpratte, and we are back again with another market discussion video. This one is fully loaded. We have so much to talk about. We're going to talk about some of the highlights of 2020, the recent retraces, the uptick in streamers, YouTubers, blue check markers opening up product. Also, how these retraces are nothing new. It's a very common cyclical process. We have some smpratisms to go through. We're going to talk about how you can't spell prices settling without set cards. There's your dad joke right out of the gates, but this is probably going to be as close to a Patreon preview as it gets. I do this every month in the MMR where I just fire knowledge directly into your brain. So whether you're ready or not, we're going to go ahead and get started with the first topic, that these retraces that we're experiencing right now are nothing new. In fact, they're par for the course. From a macro perspective, what's going on in 2020 is pretty much identical to 2016. You have increased exposure on previous availability, and that naturally brings up prices in the short term almost immediately. So that came in the form in 2020 of people like Logan Paul, all these blue checkmark YouTubers, and to be quite honest, they took it to a place that no Pokemon person could. You know, someone like me down at the bottom of the food chain, sperm whale, has nowhere near the exposure that these guys do. So therefore, they increase the exposure of Pokemon in a way that is honestly unprecedented. So you take that growth, mix it in with the previous availability before that moment, you're naturally going to have an uptick in prices and immediate reaction. And then over time, with all this new blood in the hobby, bringing out new cards out of the woodwork, some collectors selling because it's 5x, a mixture of those variables, that's going to bring certain cards down, which is why we're having this, or some of these cards are retracing as we speak. That happened 2016, same thing with Pokemon Go. You had guys that entered back then, just off the top of my head. People like PokeRev, DA Card World came in. PWCC back then did maybe 50 Pokemon cards. Now they're doing 5,000. Point being, it's the same process. That increased exposure brought prices up immediately. And then over time, with that new availability, the new people interacting and transacting, certain cards had retraces. I would say 2013-14 also had a similar thing with the Gold Stars. That one was a little more unique because the exposure was based on the new demand of getting like a PSA 10 Gold Star set. So that was like the goal everybody was chasing. And because of that discussion, there was more exposure, more focus, and it brought more Gold Stars out of the woodwork. And sure enough, after those PSA 10 sets started to pop in the pop report, the prices went down a bit and they retraced. And again, very common cyclical process that we're experiencing right now in 2020. Also, another important thing to note from all that is if you bought at the peak of 2014 Gold Star, if you bought at the peak of 2016 Skyridge Charizard, $4,500, that's an absolute like bottom floor price today in this market. I mean, that's not even bottom floor. That's like bedrock. Like that's like the mantle under the earth. Like you can't even see it anymore. 4,500 for a PSA 10 Charizard. It went down to about half that in 2017. Today, I doubt you can find a crystal PSA 10 Charizard under 20K. So therefore, that's the biggest focus here for a lot of people freaking out about the short term. If you held that for 4 years, it's about 5 times the price. Gold Stars, I can't even do the math on that in 2014 till now. I mean, it's an absolute home run if you held anything from 2014 until today. So again, just giving you a quick snapshot of long-term versus short-term. Also, another very important point that I think needs to be mentioned in every single 2020 Pokemon discussion. Got to have the coconut water, make it a true Patreon preview. Wizards of the Coast is not the only thing in Pokemon. WOTC is not the entirety of the market. It is absolutely a very popular road. It's like Highway 1, but majority of the world is not attached to Highway 1. Majority of the hobby is not Wizards of the Coast. It's where I started and where a lot of people start. But the hobby at large is not represented by just WOTC. In fact, the best way to understand this is right now as I'm making this video, the market is better, larger, has more inertia than even 3, 4, 6 months ago when some of these WOTC cards were at their peak. There are more cards listed, more people in the game. Just being transparent for myself. You know, I'll tell you my exposure and what's happened to me in 2020. Not only is it record sales and obvious things like that, I have so many messages that I can't even read. I literally do not have the time to read them. I'm probably receiving 100 messages a day. Within those messages, I have people who want to do consultation that I don't have the time to do. I have people who want consignments and I don't have the time to process. In one day, I had one company offering me a job. 2 hours later, another company offered me a job. Couldn't do either because I don't have the hyperbolic time chamber from DBZ. If you do, let me know because maybe things will change. But point being is the market is so large right now. It's so large that I myself am struggling to even keep up with it. So therefore, people who are saying the sky is falling, Retraces, that's all they're saying is that negativity. That tells me two things. One, they probably only been here anywhere between 5 seconds to 3 years. And two, they probably only or mainly collect Wizards of the Coast because majority of the market is moving at like light speed. Like, let's go back to the streamers for a second to really break that down. What's going on in 2020 with all these streamers? The food chain has expanded. Like, when Logan Paul and all those guys came in, like, the food chain used to be like, again, me down here at the bottom, Sperm Whale, then you go up to like the Leon Hearts and the bigger Pokemon guys. But like, Logan Paul is like on a whole nother world. Like, this dude's exposure, like, that guy gets offered like I have people who work in esports that told me the level of these guys that are doing these videos, they get offered 40 to 50,000 to mention a brand name, because that's the level of exposure that they're at. So therefore, this level of exposure and this increased growth in ecosystem, however you want to define it, get ready for a corporate cringe word. There's so much synergy happening today that simply wasn't there even in 2016, especially 2014 and going back. There's so much going on today. Therefore, all I can advocate is when you focus and you're cynical about the market and you surround yourself by cynical people, back in the day, you were going to be left in the dust. Now you're going to be left in the stardust. Like, it's light speed today. Like, the more you focus on just pure, like, oh, well, this card went down, the whole market's collapsing, you're going to be left behind with the people who understand. And we're going to get into that. I'm going to try to explain ways to help you better understand. First and foremost, when people ask me, that dreaded question, what should I buy? The shiny Tyranitar meme. What they're asking for is pattern recognition. If someone says to Warren Buffett, hey, what stock should I buy? They want his analysis. They want his pattern recognition ability. That's what makes or breaks you in collectibles. It's everything in life. That ability to recognize patterns is fundamental. It's a fundamental human survival tactic, and it's how you thrive. So in Pokemon, a good way to understand that is through some smpratisms of ultra rare, mint or better, and one that needs to be printed out, 72 font, bold, italicized, put on shirt, face tat me. Set cards, there's always another copy. I don't think enough people hear this. Set cards, there's always another copy. When you are collecting set cards, you're collecting condition. It might be the literal condition on the PSA label. It might be is it first edition? Is it hollow? Is it shining? Is it gold star? These are qualifiers. These are conditions for the card. Because at the end of the day, these cards are printed nationwide to demand. Now, with that, there's certain sets like Deoxys that had a low point because the demand was much lower, where newer sets have much higher availability or whatever, print run because demand is much higher. But at the end of the day, these are items printed nationwide to demand. Why I say that is going back to older rare, mint or better, people who are concerned with value, future value, things like that, that's a good general breakdown on, what did you buy? Is it older? Is it rare? How mint is it? Because what that does is that diminishes your risk of saturation. A good way to understand this is reverse it. Newer, very common, terrible condition. I just described like a PSA 3 modern fire energy. Obviously, that's never going to go up in price. So that's the general breakdown. So why I said the things about set cards is always another copy is because what's coming down right now in price? What's coming down right now? The easy to access entry level cards that take little to no information and experience that have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of copies in circulation. Being even more transparent. Going back to those messages I talked about. Some of the messages that I can respond to are people who come to me with offers, buy their collection every day at this point. They're asking, hey, I have this WOTC set. You name it, I've seen it. The ones I see less of, probably tail end of E-Series, maybe Neo Destiny. Don't see as much of that. You still see it, just not as much. Deoxys is another one. Those you don't see as much of. You still see them, just not as much. Where every day I have someone come to me base unlimited, Rocket, Fossil, even first edition base. I got guys who I had a guy the other day, 80 grand for a mint set. It's like, this is unbelievable. These are people who don't even collect Pokemon. Some sports guy comes to me. Some comic guy came to me the other day. That's where this hobby is right now. But more importantly, what are the cards they're offering? Another discussion point for the year when people talk about, the bottleneck of PSA, right? When all these cards get graded, what cards do you think are waiting in line in PSA? Think it's a Trophy Kangaskhan? Think it's a Tropical Wind? Think it's a Unicarp? How many of these guys do you think are PSA? How many of those number 2 trainers do you think are PSA? I think that's what people miss. And why they miss it is because they either are new and they don't understand there's more out there than WOTC, or there's people who've been here for ages and they just get stuck in the Safari Zone and they think that's the entire game. So at the end of the day, when I talk about set cards is always another copy, we have some examples to go through that really showcase this. I think an entry level one that everyone can understand. Unlimited Charizard for first edition. Dead obvious. Unlimited is much more common. First edition is more rare. Therefore, the price is different and reflects that. First edition Charizard pretty much moves like this over time, where Unlimited can go like this. It's very volatile at moments. The chart is not as straight of a line as you would want. In fact, it kind of flat lines for a while, then maybe dips at times, goes up sometimes, comes back down. It has a lot more volatility because naturally there's more supply. Now, here's a really good example that I think a lot of people will understand who are seasoned and new people can learn from. Mario Pikachu versus Evolution's Charizard. Mario Pikachu was released the same exact identity, 20th anniversary as Evolutions, 20th anniversary, base set Charizard in Evolutions, which is a good thing to look at. Sure, base set Charizard. But what did Mario Pikachu do from its release? Remember when I said first edition Charizard went like this? That's what Mario Pikachu did. What did Evolution's Charizard do? Went up, came down, sat down for a while, and then came back up out of retirement. Now it's doing something today, like 4 years later, but it did not have the same pattern. That thing was looking like some Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know if that's a little too old of an analogy for most viewers, but that's what it was doing. It went up, sat down for a while, and then came back up. Where Mario Pikachu did nothing but increase. It might not have gone like this, but it stayed steady, did not go down, and then eventually, it's much higher today than it was at release. Also, meanwhile, remember when we talked about Skyridge Charizard? This really drives the point home. Remember when we talked about Skyridge Charizard and we said PSA 10 Skyridge Charizard was 4,500 at the peak and then went down to 2K? Mario Pikachu was released right at that 4,500 point. When Charizard Skyridge went down, again, Mario Pikachu just sat like this. 20th anniversary, Rocket 20th anniversary, sat like this. Gold Pikachu, like this. Trophy Kangaskhan, Unicarp, Illustrator, Pika Ring, pile it on. Ultra rare, mint, or better. Every single time. I'm not saying these cards will go forever. I'm not saying they're going to have the same trajectory as first edition based Charizard. They're different. Pattern recognition. But what I will tell you is the cards that I buy that have that formula, ultra rare, mint, or better, rare is the direct line to difficult to acquisition. And that's really what I want to close with here. Something that is difficult to optimize, like when we go back to that idea of like the PSA bottleneck right now. What do you think's waiting in line at PSA? Probably the more common stuff. Probably some of the stuff these streamers are ripping and sending to PSA, because that's available. There's a reason why these guys constantly are opening boxes. How many people now are opening boxes every day, every week? A WOTC box is being broken every day, and there's still supply out there. So what's probably going to be in that line at PSA? Mixture of WOTC, a lot of modern. That's going to be a majority of it. So when you really think about what's not going to be in that line, what are the cards that are difficult to acquire? And sure, with set stuff, it's the conditions, right? PSA 10 first edition base Charizard, huge difficulty to acquisition. But rarity is the most direct path to difficult to acquisition, because the difficulty to acquisition is the thing that's going to separate your item from being saturated. Like an Illustrator. An Illustrator is by far the most difficult card to acquire. It's the most expensive. It's the most valuable. It's one of the rarest in the hobby. You have the most amount of people competing for it. I could go on and on about the people who have come to me throwing their entire life just to get that Illustrator. It's the most difficult to acquisition. That's why the price isn't as relevant. It's like if you want to acquire a Monet painting. It's one of the most difficult to acquire items because there's so much competition with such little supply. So when you have items like Evolution's Charizard, has a decent amount of popularity, but is that supply really that tough? No. Will there probably be more Evolution's Charizards even after making this video? Yes. Or even a more obvious example, the worst set of 2020, which will be a separate video. Worst set of 2020, Champion's Path. Charizard went like this, and now it's down here, and I don't think it's done. You have like 4,000 ETBs on eBay right now. It's unreal. I mean, there's just so much supply out there, and people who get stuck again in this chasing the popularity. You got to understand, when you buy a card based on popularity alone, the only way you can understand that popularity is, again, by that ability that only collectors have through experience. That's why I always say, chase that knowledge, chase that passion. If you chase that passion, you're naturally going to acquire that necessary information, that knowledge that's going to get you to that point where you understand, wait, I've been down that road before with Shaman EX. I understand this card's mass-produced. I understand I'm buying a base unlimited Charizard because of popularity, not rarity. So I shouldn't be frustrated when it gets cut in half. That's really what separates people. And one last thing to throw in here. I know this is like a hell of a video, long video. Like I said, a lot of topics. One last thing is I always try to end on an optimistic note. And why I do that is because being cynical is very easy. It's very easy to criticize and be like, oh, grandma's house, look at that furniture. Look at this guy's shirt. Look at it. Look at this. Is this a YouTuber? Like, it's very easy to do all that. You know, that takes no effort. What does take effort is figuring out those patterns that separate why Mario Pikachu is Mario Pikachu. You know, why that's doing better than something that's also just as popular, like Charizard. And for people who get stuck in that negativity and surround themselves with negativity, the best pro tip I can give you is those people are negative because they don't know. I never get negative or positive. I get excited about releases. I guess if you want to say Champion's Path is something I'm negative about, but what I'm saying about that, when my negativity is rooted in those patterns, it's not rooted in anger. It's not rooted in an emotion. So when you see people spit in that vitriol, what that tells me through my life experience of 15 years in this hobby is they're frustrated because they don't know. When everyone's talking about these retraces with WOTC, I'm just like, yeah, I get it, because I've been there. But for people who are new and bought at 5,000, now their card's 2,000, they're angry, so everything's got to be wrong. The market's got to be terrible. The bubble's got to be happening. All of these things have to be true. And that's the one thing I wanted to end on for 2020, is try to give you some realistic optimism that why the people who've been around the longest have the least amount of like just vitriol is because they understand why Champion's Path wasn't a good set, because it lacks fundamentals. And, you know, I'm not going to murder Champion's Path. I have a box sitting right here on the ground. Champion's Path, where it belongs. But, you know, the point I want to get at is that separation between those people who are just frustrated because they didn't know any better. And that's how you learn. We've all been there. I've sold a card, talked about it earlier, sold a PSA 9 versus Charizard 10K. It went up to like 60. Now it's come down a bit. You know, I could have sold for like 2, 3, 4, 5 times the price. I didn't. You learn. I'm learning all the time. So that's why I wanted to close with here is follow that chase, follow that passion. Don't get sidetracked with negativity. You don't want to get sidetracked with the cue ball and like the bug catcher and all these side characters. You want to be your own main character. So I'm going to end on that positive note for 2020 that's where the answers are in the pattern recognition. Don't get sidetracked with that vitriol. Focus on what makes a card what it is, what makes popularity what it is. You learn that through experience. You learn that from being engaged. It comes naturally with time. And that's pretty much all I can give you. And yeah, hopefully that was useful. I know this was a pretty dense video. It's a very dense. If you just jumped into this channel for the first time right now, you're going to be like, what is this dude doing? Like, this is so dense. It's so deep in there with all the deep patterns of the hobby. But again, I hope this is valuable. And just to reiterate, this is kind of what I do in Patreon. I'm more pointed in Patreon, where I pick specific things, go through modern vintage, underrated, overrated. I do this every single month. Those videos are like 40 minutes long. So yeah, that's it. Got to wrap it up. You know deal. Let me know how you feel, guys. It's pretty much it. This year was a whirlwind, and we're just going to keep on keeping on. There you go. Until next time.